Does 2 steps forward and 1 step back sound way too familiar? What if there was a simple shift that you could implement in your life to change that story? I understand that simple sometimes is a loaded word, and oftentimes things that are simple can also be broken down incredibly complex. But my intention for this video is to give you a quick, powerful reframe to help you along your way, to help your subconscious mind change so that this can actually change. So when you recognize how the subconscious mind works, it runs off of what it is repeatedly fed, what it is repeatedly exposed to. So that takes into account your history, obviously, any trauma, emotional stuff like that, but also your daily life and what you're exposed to, what you say to yourself, and all the things, right? So if this is a common phrase that you say, how's it going? Well, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Think about the energy behind that statement. So when you look at it simply, if you're putting it on paper, you can say, well, it's progress, because 2 steps forward, 1 step back is 1 step forward, which is fair. But when you think about the energy of the statement, it's more neutral or negative, right? So instead of saying 2 steps forward, 1 step back, maybe you say it's always steps forward.
All right, now I realize that might sound a little bit contradictory, and you likely could have some resistance to that notion because you're like, no, motherfucker, I'm taking steps backwards, right? But that's an example of how powerful the subconscious mind is. If you get that kind of resistance, that kind of powerful feeling emerge from a thought like this, then it's a sign that I'm correct and that we're on the right path here, okay? It's all brain training. Really, everything you seek in terms of your path forward is all brain training and or the process of letting go, right? Which there might be resistance to that as well. But if you look at it simply, it's just something that I've said for a long time. The reason I've said it for a long time is because other people said it around me a long time, and that's how people communicate. It's kind of the same thing as you ask someone how their day is going, and you get, there's a range of simple answers that you get back, right? Yeah, that's great. Well, what do you do? It's a Monday, or well, I'm all right. It's all these things that people have just been conditioned to say. If you practice awareness and catch yourself when you say 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and instead say it's all steps forward, realizing that any failure, any mistake is not bad. The way that we grow, the way that we learn, the way that we achieve whatever we want to achieve is by making mistakes and making failures and learning from those things, right? So that framework then, and this is good for your subconscious mind, that framework then makes it a real statement. There's no step backward. It really is all steps forward. Any resistance is just an old story in either the mind or the body.
Now, you might have some resistance. Man, what a perfect example. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. If you do have some resistance to what I'm saying, you're in luck, because that's one of my favorite things to help people with. So to do that, we're going to do a quick thought experiment, and then we're going to come back to what just happened here, and how a historical version of myself would have reacted and what would have happened versus what happened now, which is I'm continuing forth with the video in the moment without losing my shit. More on that in a moment. The thought experiment. Okay, so hypothetically, if this has been something that you've been saying for a while, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and maybe there's some resistance to not saying it, what would happen if you just didn't say it anymore? What negative thing would happen if you just stopped saying it? If you really think about it, there's nothing negative there. There might be a little bit of like deeper parts of yourself that wants to keep it because it's a way that it associates with others and communicates and has camaraderie with social engagement, because it's the patterns of how we communicate, back to what I was saying earlier. Hey Phil, how you been doing? Well, you know how it is, man. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. How are you doing? You see, it's a pattern of social engagement that makes us feel comfortable, or makes the inner child, the deeper part of the self, feel comfortable, so you don't have to go outside of the box. Hopefully you see what I'm saying. If not, bear with me. We'll get there, I promise. So if you can take just one thing away from this video, and hopefully this example will help illustrate it, It's the words that we say repetitively, unconsciously, that are like these unconscious frames of thought that we've adopted over time that can contribute greatly to keeping us stuck in a cycle. Your subconscious mind controls 90 to 95% of your reality. And so this is just such a huge part of it. And so often it's overlooked. There are other things that people say in society, and I'm sure I'm going to do more videos about them, that are common phrases that we would really find benefit in not saying anymore. And so for me in my life, the more I took away these constricted patterns of thought, the more it freed me up to actually do the things that are going to get me to where I would like to be, right? And so I just reframe anything that's happened in the past that a previous version of myself would be like, oh man, I shouldn't have done that. I just don't look at it that way. I look at it and I say, well, no, I mean, I'm glad this happened because I learned X, Y, Z from it. Now, the analytical mind, believe me, I get. The analytical mind wants to come in and be like, yeah, but what about if blah, blah, blah happens, right? And that's that on guard nature that so many of us have been conditioned to have. But we're not talking about that. You know, if anything, if that's some resistance, then let's just say, okay, fine. We won't apply this rule in those quote unquote big areas, but we're going to apply this rule in every other nuance of your daily life, right? And at some point, you'll get to the point that you see that this is the nature of the universe, and it's woven into the fabric of the universe. Everything plays a part. And I know that can sound bananas, and more resistance can come from it. Something I'll often say, you know, people strive for perfection unconsciously, but the perfection that they're striving for is fleeting, and it's not something that will actually get them fulfillment. Perfection is not a real thing unless you accept the notion that everything is perfect. And now, believe me, I know some resistance can come from that, right? I know, believe me. But again, we're not talking about all that stuff going on outside in the world, okay? We're talking about you and your life and where you're going in your life. That's what really matters, because there's a wise philosopher, and I don't want to quote it. I feel like it's Ram Dass, but it might not be, that says, yesterday I thought I was clever. I was trying to change the world. Today, yesterday I thought I was wise or clever and I was trying to change the world, but today I'm wise and I'm changing myself. There it is, right? I knew it was something like that, right? Paraphrasing the shit out of it. But there's so much truth to it. In the last bit, something that I say so much, but it helps bring it all together. And if you're just discovering this, right, just taking a step back and looking at something like the recent Nobel Prize winner in 22, and that Nobel Prize winner showed, I believe through quantum physics, I'm paraphrasing, that how we've historically looked at quote unquote reality is not accurate. And furthermore, right, that it's all pointing to that consciousness is what is fundamental, and everything external is a projection of consciousness. Now, I'm going to do more in-depth content about this stuff, and if that all sounds bananas, maybe it sounds bananas, but there's a little bit of, I don't know, maybe, in you, then I would say table that, maybe research it, look into stuff, go down your road of looking into the unexplained, right? But just work to adopt this principle mindset in your daily life, and I swear to you, it will change your life. You just have to stick with it. There are foundational principles that are beneficial to have, certainly. And if you want something in that category to help you on your journey, you can comment below this video and just say the word peace, and then we'll go through an engagement, and I'll get it to you somehow. I can email it to you or whatever. You can also find my email address on my link and send me an email that says peace, and I'll respond to that. So there are foundational principles that are important. But so much of this is mindset. So much of everything is what you think about, how you feel, and how you react in your daily life. And your triggers are actually your teachers.
So how do we tie triggers are your teachers to 2 steps forward, 1 step back? If you're adopting this mindset, whenever you feel like you're doing the 2 steps forward, 1 step back thing, and you say, well, wait a minute, no, actually this serves me,
but then it breeds that little bit of resistance in you. That's your opportunity to recognize that the trigger there is an opportunity for you to grow. And tying that into me and the shifts that I've experienced, which I feel like was demonstrated by happenstance in this video, the further along that I've done this practice with myself, the more present I am with things like creating content, which for an unconscious part of myself is me putting myself out there on the grid. And for a long time in creating content, I would have little mess ups and stuff like that. And I'd have these blurt outs of like fucking shit, piece of shit and stuff like that. But as we saw in the beginning of this video, it happened and I kept rolling. I had a smile on my face. It didn't, there was a little bit of a cut for whatever, just the editing, but you can tell that like I kept going, and that's what the benefit in this type of liberation gives us is, for a lot of us, when we have these types of moments happen, they start to constrict our mind and or our actions, and it holds us back from going further along this beautiful expansion of consciousness journey that we're on.
And your triggers are actually your teachers. So going forward, if you adopt this mindset, you are not 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Not anymore. You have been in the past. You know what? That framing of thought even served you a little bit. But going forward, you recognize that everything that you've been through contributes to who you are today and contributes to your growth forward. And the more you adopt that mindset, the more free your life becomes, the more liberated you become, the more you take actions in areas that serve you without you having to pressure yourself to do it.
Just you wait in me again, just you wait. You'll be sorry that your tears will be too late. Just you wait in me again, just you wait. You'll be sorry